Welcome to Pulp Mythos. I'm Brian here with Spencer and Larry, and we're going to be discussing the season 4 premiere of Snowfall. If you've not hit the sub button or the bell, please do so. We're going to be doing these reviews every single week. We have a lot of other content on the channel. Check it out. We're doing WandaVision. We're going to be doing Invincible later in the month, a couple other shows. We typically do a lot of stuff that's on Showtime, HBO, stuff like that. But we're doing Snowfall. Leave a comment, leave a like. Let's start. And I want to start by saying we're doing this due to request. You know, we had said several weeks ago, is there anything that the audience is into that we're not covering or have not mentioned that we were going to cover? And Snowfall kept coming up on multiple videos. Now, unfortunately, none of us had ever seen or even really heard of Snowfall. But Spencer, being the trooper he is, watched every single episode. He is 100% caught up. Larry and myself are not. I've watched a few clips. I've read some things. Spencer's filled me in on a few gaps, but I've not seen the show up till the premiere of season 4. So a lot of times I'm going to be directing it to Spencer because he knows the background of what's going on. I do intend to go back and watch the show, maybe even during this run. I don't know yet, but if I say something that sounds dumb, that's why. It's just simply I'm not informed. I don't know. But Spencer, if I say something dumb, fill me in or correct me. We're going to start with first of all, I'm frustrated that I didn't know about this show. Spencer, yeah, me and Larry, we were talking all about it. How Spencer kept telling me as he was burning through the series. He's like, damn, this show is good. He's like, this is the kind of stuff we love. He's like, how the hell have we not heard of it? We're all FX fans. Do you guys know anyone who's ever even mentioned this show to you?
No.
No one has ever discussed this with me.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate because like I said, I burned through the 3 episodes. I get up, I don't sleep very much, so I wake up super early and I don't have to be at work till a little bit later. So, I watched a couple episodes every day, and as I was catching up, I was just like, oh my God. This is exactly the kind of, and we always mention The Wire, and there's a character in the show that's from The Wire, and it's very Wire-esque. Franklin's journey is very similar to that of Stringer Bell, and it's so good, but for it to fly under the radar completely for me boggles my mind. Like how I had no idea it even existed.
Yeah, it's frustrating when you discover a show this late in its run, and it's like, damn, this was good.
And I feel like this is the point where I'm gonna hear people in my life, just pop up and just kind of go, "Oh, you didn't know about Snowfall? We've been watching that since the first season." I feel like I do know a lot of people who are watching it, but they've just never mentioned it because you mentioned that like every season has gotten renewed before it's completed. Like mid-season, it gets renewed every season. I also want to mention that we're starting with, even though we're new to it, we are starting these reviews with season 4. So
yes.
Don't hop into this expecting us to not spoil recent happenings because that's roughly the only thing we're covering right now. But yeah, I'm very surprised that no one has ever mentioned this, and yet it's on season 4, and I haven't seen anything on it. I haven't seen any of the YouTubers or social media personalities that I follow talk about it or cover it in any way.
And they took a year off too. I think COVID. Because they had a season in 17, 18, 19, and then now. So I think they took last year off.
Okay. Yeah, a lot of people did. But yeah, enjoyed the premiere. Like I said, Larry said, full spoilers. We're starting with the first 2 episodes of season 4, titled Re-Entry and Wait. So let's start with, and I know some of these things. Like I said, I've read up on some things, and Spencer's filled me in, so I'm not completely in the dark. But a little bit. Franklin Saint, he's still recovering from the gunshot wounds he suffered last season by Melody, and we get the beginning of him basically stepping back into the leadership role. We see who's been running things, for this period of time that he's been out. We see his aunt, Louie. We see, Jerome's doing things. We have the fact that Leon is basically doing his own thing, and it sort of feels a certain kind of way about how maybe he's not being respected enough. Maybe he could venture out on his own. Now, it's played for laughs a little bit in the second episode, and we'll get into that shortly. And finally, wars have broken out. You know, Scully and Manboy are going at it. People are dying. Bodies are piling up. Things are getting out of control. And Franklin's not only trying to step back into his leadership role, he's trying to calm that situation down. Spencer, where do you want to start?
Well, just what you said with Louis kind of taking over, that was part of Leon's beef, is that he's been his ride or die right hand man through the first, 3 seasons. He's been the person who, in season 1, he ends up killing a guy for Franklin, because he knew that they weren't going to be ever taken seriously unless they took care of this guy. And I don't remember the guy's name. He wasn't like a huge character, but Leon's gone to bat for Franklin a lot of times, but they've kind of gone back and forth a lot because their other friend Kevin, Franklin killed him, not on purpose. He was trying to, leg shot him, kind of wound him, but he bled out. So there's been a lot of tension between them, and their relationship, I think, is going to drive their portion of the story this season. I think that that's going to be a huge deal going forward, because you saw, Leon mentioned it. A lot of the soldiers are
Serve
all
him.
Leon's people. Obviously the brains are Louis and Franklin, but the big business side of it is Franklin and Louis. But you can't fight a war without soldiers, and Leon's got most of them. So
Leon's clearly his biggest issue is supply. He doesn't have a supply, and like I was saying earlier, the comedy bit. Yeah, they think they know somebody, and it looks like it's going to be a hit on them to take. I guess potentially they had money with them, but that's his. They're talking about having to cut it. They're cutting the drugs, and he's like, how many times are we going to cut it? Diluting the purity of what they have, and
like, cut it again. I don't give a shit.
And so that's going to be their problem. What is your prediction on where that's going to go in terms of where could they get supply?
Well, and I think they mentioned it in these 2 episodes. It's been a running thing throughout. Franklin's connection via Reed, Teddy, the cocaine is so pure through them, and they get it at such a low price that's the reason they keep getting customers. They're able to sell it for so cheap, and it's the strongest out of any of their other competitors. But now Leon's associated with Franklin. What happens when he's got to cut it so much that it's not strong? It's not good quality drugs anymore. I think that that's going to hurt Franklin's name too. So I think that's going to cause kind of they already have a rift for lots of different reasons, but I think that this is going to cause an even bigger issue going forward.
Well, yeah, and when we see there's issues with supply happening that Franklin is unaware of at the moment, as we're seeing the stuff go on in like where's that taking place? Is that taking place in Mexico or?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So we're seeing that his supply may be cut off or become more expensive for him to buy in the first place. And what was the deal with the local sheriff and his suppliers, the everything they're dealing with. There's a lot of drama over there that Franklin's on. So it looks like he's kind of, without even knowing it, he's dealing with a lot. We saw these last 2 episodes, he's got a lot on his plate, but he's unknowingly kind of being pincered in a way because, while he's dealing with this gang war and he's dealing with, like you said, trying to bring his friend back into the fold, which I agree with you, Spencer. That does seem like that's where a major part of the focus on the series is going to be. There's hints at that. Like, you see at the party, like his new associate, I can't remember her name because she's had 2 major scenes, and
she was only in the first season for like a few minutes. Like she wasn't a big character lead. She wasn't a big character leading up to this season. She's
about T.
Yeah.
Well, she does a bit of foreshadowing when she. When they're looking at Franklin's old friend and everything, and she says, you got to keep people like that close, and she's basically telling him this is how you get ahead. So I think it will be even though right after that scene they have a falling out, I think it will, ultimately lead to them having to depend on each other, or just or this might be the end of the series. We might be watching the end right here because they're cornered.
Well, previously to this, him and Leon have had a couple falling outs. Like they fell out over the initial kind of drug trade, and then he got mad at Franklin for not including him, and then the Kevin stuff happened, and then all the stuff with Oso and Gustavo. There's been a lot of things that have been causing tension between Leon and Franklin, but they keep finding their way back to each other because it's not just about business; they're friends. So they get over it. They're just like, "Man, my bad," and then they're good again. So I think that this is probably going to be the same way. It's going to go back to that, or like you said, going forward, they're either going to bond together to kind of fight this, or they're going to become in two different factions, and they're going to end up being at war with each other also. So that storyline is the one I'm most interested in right now.
The war between Scully and Manboy, Franklin. Well, it's really interesting that he goes to Reed and he basically is asking for help, and he's like, "Look, I can't get involved in that," but he gives him some advice, and he sort of lays out some history with the CIA and some things that they pulled with basically, when you have two opposing forces, choose the one that benefits you the most, even if they're quote unquote bad. And Franklin makes that decision. He's like, all right, he's going to go with Manboy, and he sets up Scully, and that shit goes horribly wrong. And we find out Scully did not die, and now Franklin's on the run. He fears for his parents. He fears for his crew. He even gets a word to Leon like, yeah, I know we're beefing right now, but look, Scully's looking for blood, and you might be on that list as well. So that situation is clearly going to escalate. I'm assuming throughout the season. Manboy seems cool about everything. He's like, oh, that's good. I got him. I shot him. This could be the end for him as well, depending on how things play out. Where do you think this war goes from here, and what could Franklin possibly do to try and get himself out of this situation?
Well, I think the Manboy, I love his character. I mean, I hate him, but I love him at the same time. I don't, because he's such an arrogant asshole. Like throughout, because he didn't come in until season 3. He's such an arrogant turd, but he is ambitious, and that's what Franklin fears the most, is that he's going to one day come after them. However, although Scully's been loyal, Scully's batshit crazy. He's
enjoys crucifying people.
Yeah. So he's super religious, but he is, the stuff that he does, he's talking about stoning Franklin, and it's these awful things. So Scully is the bigger evil, but I think that if he has to rely on Manboy again, that may cause Manboy's crew to feel that they're more powerful than they are also. So this fight between Manboy and Scully is going to, now it's between Manboy, Scully, and Franklin because he got himself involved, but it's going to escalate quickly. And I'm curious if it's going to take the Miami, New York route, because remember in the 80s with cocaine and all the cartels and stuff, that was real big. And they mention it, I think. I think Teddy mentions it. He talks about, I don't want this turning into Miami, where basically everyone was dying, and then all the people showed up, the DEA, the feds, the CIA, the cops, everybody was on them. So they're trying to keep that heat away from what they're doing right now, but it seems as though it's going to be coming down here shortly.
Yeah, absolutely. And, everything seems to be coming to a head here. And, and I've only obviously known this character for 2 episodes, but Scully does seem crazy as hell. And, he's looking for signs and things, and he's taking drugs and looking for an almost religious experience to guide him. And I could see someone like Franklin seeing that as a liability. And while the issue that he has to bear with Manboy is, like you said, that ambition, I also feel like he thinks he can use that, in case Franklin wants to expand in some way. Though, and I think they will wind up winning this, but I do think that'll be a problem that, when they do, Franklin's resources may be depleted, and Manboy might smell blood in the water, and he might want what's Franklin's.
Well, and the trailer, and this is kind of a theme coming up, is that, and I made the comparison to Stringer Bell. He's trying to go legit. He's trying to expand his empire to where his money doesn't fully rely on drugs. At the end of season 3, towards the middle of season 3, they do a whole offshore accounts thing. Now he's got like a fake name, and he's got all these, because he's got so much money, similar to like Escobar. If you watch any of the narco shows or anything, he was burying millions of dollars because he just didn't know what to do with it. He just had so much. And Franklin's starting to be in that same boat. So they're trying to basically get legit things to put their money into because they have so much of it. But what kind of hit are they going to take if a war breaks out? All these business ventures he's trying to do to kind of legitimize himself are going to go to shit because he's going to be fighting a war.
Yeah, and then we have another conflict that Franklin's having to deal with in the dirty cop Nix. And basically, now Franklin was giving him some information, basically telling him to go deal with Scully. He took that as a setup to get him killed. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. Is that how you read that scene? Because when he came to see Franklin's father and all pissed off, basically saying, your son's going to have to pay me double now because, he tried to trick me, essentially. Is that what you gathered in what he was trying to do to the cop?
I didn't
either. I wasn't really clear on it.
I think that what he was trying to do is get him a big bust. He was trying to get rid of Scully, and he was trying to basically get the cops to do it because Franklin's, he just killed the cop. He killed Andre. So he would have been absolved kind of that blame initially anyway. And I don't think Scully's crew would have pointed the finger at Franklin for basically outing them. And I think he was just trying to get the cops to do his dirty work for him. I don't think that he was trying to set him up to die. I think he was literally trying to give him a big fish so that Nix would be happy. He would look like a hero and also take out one of his enemies at the same time. I don't think that he was trying to set him up to kill him.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he was trying to kill two birds with one stone with this one. That said, Franklin seems pretty smart, and, he seems like one of the smarter characters on the show. And, I think he's going to read into that too. He's going to read into, this character's fear, because, what you take away from that is it's like, oh, he may be it seems like he's a little afraid of Franklin. So he's trying to press and make himself look tough, so that may come back to bite him is the thing. It's at least if Franklin sees it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Avi. He only appears in one scene. Like I said, I haven't seen the previous season, so this was probably the one part that I got the least out of in terms of understanding. But Spencer filled me in quite a bit. Some guns have gone missing that were supposed to reach a certain destination, and Reed comes to basically say, "Hey, what's going on?" Avi's playing it cool. He's not letting on that there's any issues, and basically he's like, "Hey, I'm going to send my best guy. He's going to take care of the situation." Reed isn't having it, and we're starting to see Reed get to a point where he's going a little bit going to the extreme side. He pulls his gun, he shoots it to basically deafen a guy, and he wants answers, and he says, "Avi, you're going to take care of this personally." In terms of the growth or the change of the character of Reed Thompson / Teddy McDonald, how important is that scene, Spencer? And also the situation with Avi and what he's dealing with in terms of his supply being interrupted.
Well, Reed at the beginning of the whole thing is very meek. He gets like nauseous. He throws up a couple times. He's working with a guy named Alejandro, who is based out of Nicaragua. They're funding, their war. But he's very timid. And then as the seasons progress, he gets a little bit more confident. He kind of falls into this character of Reed Thompson. So he's able to talk his way out of almost everything. But then he finally starts having to get his hands dirty throughout season 3 and the end of season 2 a little bit. But as it's progressed, he's just gotten in more and more trouble. And you've seen the change in him as a person. On that same note, Avi's gone the opposite direction. Avi in season 1 is basically Franklin's cocaine supplier, and he's shooting at people for fun. They're putting on like bulletproof vests, and he's shooting them kind of like Super Troopers kind of shit. And Avi's this like crazy drug lord. And then as his own, because he said the Mossad's coming after him, so he's got these groups coming after him now, and now he's basically on the run. So it's his business is falling apart, but it's because of pressure from back home for him that he's just not able to do it. But he's been able to talk his way out of it too. And now Reed's like, nah, man, I gave you money. And he's making Avi have to deal with some of his older demons that are coming back to haunt him.
Well, now that's interesting because Reed was a character that, having started watching from this season, he seems way more in control, and like he's probably possibly playing everybody. That he's pulling a lot of strings. He seems like kind of a puppet master of sorts. Even the way he feeds, Franklin, the idea of how to handle his character. You imagine that Reed's done a lot of these things that he's mentioned, and maybe he has by this point. So it'll be interesting because I definitely plan on going back and watching those older episodes as we're watching these new ones. And trying to eat through previous seasons. It'll be interesting to see a less confident, more uncertain version of this character.
Oh, it's funny. There's an episode where they go to a party, and he's got these glasses on because he's trying to be Reed Thompson, but he's throwing up in the bathroom and staring in the mirror, freaking out. And then he finally comes out with this whole persona and up one of the drug deals. And it's just silly to see him go from that to what he's doing now. And it's so well written that a lot of the characters have grown. Some of them not in great ways, but they've all taken a route, and they're all different from when you first see them in season one. And to see that growth it's just good writing. The season itself has been amazing.
Yeah, you're right, Larry. There's the scene at the party when Leon pulls the gun out on Gustavo, and he's freaking out, and Reed is just sort of chill. He's like, "Hey, man, Franklin, get your people," and he's sort of calm in the back. And you're right, having not seen the previous seasons, and being told that he was a mess, and he's sort of become this. He has become Reed Thompson, this sort of made up character. It's interesting seeing it, the end product, and then definitely gonna go back and see the growth to where he got to that point.
Ouch. Sorry, I bit my toe.
You dip it in honey.
He was sitting at the edge of the bed, and I just poked his nose with my toe, so he bit my foot.
Which one, McGruff? Or yeah, that's a big ass dog, man. Let's see here. Let's jump into the Gustavo Reed situation, which escalated in an extreme way. Basically, there's a new police chief in one of the places that they're transporting the drugs, and he basically wants $100,000 a week to allow this to continue. Reed tells him, "Well, I could probably get you 50." And he seems like, okay, that's fine. Well, this asshole turns around and kills some of Gustavo's people. Now, I don't know who were those characters to him.
The gentleman who was in the wheelchair and his family were old. I want to say that the guy is a cousin of his or something, but they had a previous drug deal. Him and Lucia, who was his partner in crime before he started working with Teddy. They worked with that guy's gang. So, but he used him as muscle. He basically had him get that house, and they started, digging and trying to transport drugs underground right there, because they're in San Jose area, I believe, and then the Mexican, I guess, police chief and stuff.
Yeah,
that's Tijuana.
Yeah. Well, and what's insane about that, so he kills the two, and then the children, they don't show them. I don't know if they're dead or taken or whatever, but you sit back and you say, look, if you really, okay, these guys are running this amount of drugs through your city. You think they have the capability of giving you $100,000 a week, and this is in the 80s, so that's even more significant. Wow. You don't think they have the capability of coming after you? Yes, you're a police chief, but I think he overplayed his hand, and I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but we'll see how this plays out. Where do you guys think this story is going to lead to? Do you think Reed's going to go, say, call in some favors and take out these cops, or what do you think?
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, exactly. Like you said, if they have that type of money and the connections that they have that we've seen throughout this show, um, then they can come at him. Is the thing, and and like seen the amount of product that they're moving. They know that Reed clearly works for somebody, and it's like, unless you know his whole operation, it's like, why would you do this? It's foolish to not even, like he killed one of their guys and his family and everything. It's like you didn't, like, they didn't even send him a message. They went in guns a blazing, and it seemed it speaks very much of a guy who's not as in control as he thinks. Who's trying to throw his weight around.
Well, I think that what you just said, Larry, throwing his weight around, he feels that he is powerful. He feels that he has all the cards, and they don't know Gustavo. Like, Gustavo, between season 1 and now, like, he was always kind of a loose cannon, but he will do anything for his people. He is capable of everything and will do anything. And the fact that he took out his friend, his wife, and I think like his nieces and nephews, like his family, and he is going to go apeshit, regardless of whether Reed helps him or not. He's going to go apeshit. Do you guys know any of the cartels by name? I only know some of them because of Narcos.
No, I don't.
Pablo was a big one, but there's this Colombian cartel called the Cali cartel, and they are a big fucking deal. Well, Reed worked with them a lot. So you talk about connections. I think that at the end of this, Reed's probably going to call in a couple people, and I don't think that he's going to call in, DEA or CIA. I think he's going to call in some of his illegal friends, and I think that they're going to be dealt with. The Tijuana cops are going to be done here very soon.
It could be there. Excuse me. There's a callback to. There's a line of dialogue when we meet Lerp at the beginning, and he looks at Franklin. It's like, "Oh, you're hiring mercs now." He's ex-military. You think that in turn that Reed might do something similar?
Yes. Also, he may go to Franklin too, because remember, Lerp, and this is not like something old, but remember, Lerp said that he's got some of his friends coming from Oakland.
Yes. They're calling in some guys, to army up, yeah.
So that's going to be a whole bunch of more military grade personnel. So I didn't even think about that. Reed might come to Franklin and be like, "Hey, man, I can get you all the weapons, all the money, all the coke you want if you just help me take care of this." And then Reed might be the one who helps Franklin with the Scully and Manboy situation.
That's a good point. Yeah, and it's that speaks volumes that, a lot of their issues can be solved with, just this group of people that are, to some degree, most of them at odds with each other. They seems like the only way they're getting through this is if they connect and use each other's resources in that way, because, like you mentioned, this isn't just his problem. This is also Franklin's problem, because, he's asking for $100,000, every time they cross the border. So that becomes a cost issue for Franklin.
Remember, Louis tells him the only reason they are where they're at is the cheap supply.
Yeah.
If the cheap supply goes away, Franklin is no different than any of the rest of the gangs that are warring right now. That's his only advantage.
Yeah, the purity and the cheapness that they're able to supply that purity at.
We get a new character, a reporter, and she is digging heavily into Franklin Saint. She seems to know certain things, not really sure what her end game is outside of maybe just, having a big piece highlighting the gang wars and, the state of where LA is going. But she's digging deep, and by the end of the second episode, she not only has a lot of information on Franklin, she's aware of who he is and what he does. She knows about the offshore accounts, the fact that he's a 21-year-old kingpin. She tracks down his family. She goes and meets with his father, and we know that they're going to have a conversation. Where that goes, what is her real goals? Not sure. Spencer, you said she's a brand new character. She's not in previous seasons. So this is a story that, we all are pretty much, on the same page as far as where this could go. Larry, what do you think her goal is, and where do you think that story will lead?
Well, yeah, I think her goal is that story. Like she's played this as, to a lot of characters when she's, trying to interview them or trying to get information out of them. She plays it as her trying to help out or clean up the neighborhood. Whereas we're seeing a lot of deception here. We're seeing a lot of her use people. Like I think she's trying to get this story. She may have a personal vendetta of some kind for all we know, but I doubt she's 100% a good person because I've never known a good person to lie so smoothly. So easily and be so quick on their feet about it is the thing. So there may be some ulterior motives there.
Oh, I think 100% she's got ulterior motives, but I think also she's during that time, Rodney King didn't happen until the 90s. The cops in LA were not looked at by anybody as being these pillars of greatness. They were reviled. Everybody hated them, including her, because she knew Officer Nix. Like she was like,
that's
hey,
true. She knew him by name.
So to me, that shows that she's been running probably a bunch of reports, a bunch of things about crooked cops and everything. And I think that it has more to do with that than it does to do with Franklin. But I think what she's trying to do is basically draw the parallels between the cops and how they're helping the drug game get out of control there too.
Yeah, and that brings up a question that came up in my mind during that. When I started seeing that connection, it's like, oh, she knows Nix. So which way is this problem gonna solve itself? Is it gonna be Franklin and Nix kind of burying the hatchet in order to deal with her, or vice versa? Like is she like are they gonna get her out of the way by maybe throwing Nix to the wolves to some degree, and pointing the finger at him? But I think it's more likely that Nix and Franklin will work to get rid of this reporter than anything.
I could definitely see that.
I'm curious because in previous seasons, Reed helped Franklin several times get out of jail one time, get off on the murder rap for Kevin that he shot in the way. Like, there's so many things that he has helped because he basically goes to his boss and be like, hey, man, I need this guy. He is my in. He's the one helping me get money. He's doing all these things. So, but I don't know about the freedom of the press. I don't know what Reed would be able to do with her. So like you said, I think it might be Franklin taking care of it himself and Nix because he doesn't want his name involved in it either.
I'm gonna say I doubt Reed's bosses or Reed care about freedom of the press. I mean, he could very well get rid of this person for him. It's one reporter. Like, if anything, they'd be worried about her knowing about their involvement in this, so they'd be more likely, I think, to sort of deal with this.
I think another angle that may occur is sort of the end of the second episode, but before the end. But Franklin goes to see his parents, and his mother basically lays out her plan. Something she's been wanting to do, sort of get ties to politicians and people of power, and therefore you can have more legitimacy with your money. And this reporter, if that storyline takes off and they do start, she already said she donated a bunch of money to this person, and now we're getting political ties. Well, the reporter, she's going to love that, especially if she sees it or learns about it. So now that may tie into the reporter what she's her story. So now you got dirty cops. You got drugs, you got these wars being funded, you got political connections. This could be something that all comes together for the reporter, potentially.
Well, to be devil's advocate again on this one, that could also make it go the other way. Now that there's all these connections, it could be the sort of thing that whatever publication she's working with is like, whoa, I don't want heat with Mayor so-and-so. They could be very buddy, so her story could get buried, or she might have to take it somewhere else, if anywhere at all.
Well, I think that may be very well what happens. That's a good point. I remembered her talking about trying to get political ties, but just imagine if some mayor or some senator or some congressperson is caught up in this. They may be the ones that take her out. It may not be Nix or Franklin. They may be like, hey, you need to shut up. You're going to get in trouble. and it may be one of them, one of the dirty politicians that end up taking her out, and it has nothing even. Well, I mean, it would be because of Franklin, but it wouldn't be Franklin even being involved.
Yeah, that is, yeah, definitely. A couple smaller stories, a little minor things I wanted to touch on. Melody, briefly, who's found religion in a big way, and she also spoke with a reporter. Spencer, does her story go anywhere from here, or is it pretty much done? What do you think?
I'm not 100% sure. I actually, at the end of last season, I thought she was done because, she not accidentally, she gave into peer pressure and started smoking crack, and shit went left real quick. And when all of that went down, Melody's character changes. Like, she's this person, she's super smart, she's going to Spelman University, she's got all her shit together. And you could see her start slowly sliding in season 3 into making some poor decisions and doing drugs. Like, she started snorting coke, and then she started hanging out with the wrong people, and then she started doing other drugs. And then a friend was just like, "Hey, man, come on, just try it." And from that point on, she got hooked. But her aunt is trying to keep her off of that, so she's turning her to religion. And I'm curious to see that if she basically is the one that attempts to undo Franklin, or if Franklin has to make that decision, be like, man, she's got to shut the fuck up, and has to go take her out, because that's his childhood girl. That's his crush. Like, they were in a relationship at one time. Like, that's his girl. That was his next door neighbor. And I'm really curious to see if it goes further than it did already.
Well, yeah, and that's a good question, because we don't know, other than what we've heard from the reporter, we don't know how much she's told that the reporter. So, I'm curious, how much does she know about Franklin's operation when we're at this point in season?
Who, Melody? Melody or the reporter?
Melody.
Melody knows all the things. She was their next door neighbor, and they were together. And she knows that he killed her dad. Like, she knows all of it. And that's the reason Franklin was all jacked up at the beginning of this season, because Melody shot him. Melody was the one that shot him at the dad's wake. Like, it was. So Melody knows all of it. And at first she was against it. She was like, Franklin, you can't get in with these people. You can't, be associated with that. But it got to the point where she was just like, it's not that big a deal. Because Franklin never used any drugs. He's like it's all about business with Franklin. Franklin doesn't do any of it.
I remember he ordered water.
Yeah.
At the party. Yeah.
Smoke, he doesn't do nothing. He's very level-headed. Well, I shouldn't say level-headed. He does some crazy shit. But he's very smart. So seeing it go that route with Melody was a real eye-opener as to how much it can affect anybody. And I think that she knows all the things. Now, I don't know how much she's willing to divulge, but I think after she was willing to shoot him because of her dad, I think that Melody might be the one that tries to sink Franklin more than anybody else.
A final thing I want to say, and then if you guys have more you want to go into, we're starting to see this war and all these conflicts are starting to weigh on Franklin's crew. Peaches gets shot. He survived, but he got shot. Jerome had to kill somebody, and that's bugging him. We have a couple scenes where he seems a little out of it, and then he, brings up the fact that, he had to shoot and kill somebody in the middle of that firefight. So we're starting to see some wear and tear on Franklin's crew. And of course, Leon has taken his soldiers away. So, by the end of episode 2, when you weigh everything that happened, Franklin is heavily at a disadvantage. And my assumption is the season's journey will be him trying to figure out how to get out of all that and come out on top, which is, going to be very enjoyable to see. Spencer, you like I say, you've seen the seasons, you're more familiar with Jerome, Peaches. How did those scenes, how did you react to those, or what did you think about them?
I was sad when Peaches got shot because I like Peaches, but his character's been essentially that. He's just been muscle the whole time. He's somebody close to the family. He knows everybody, but it's not really that big a deal. And Jerome's always been the badass. Like but talk about Stringer Bell. Jerome is the one that wants to go clean the most. He started like this speaker business called Jammin' Jerome's.
Oh shit!
Yeah,
That's cool.
and so he's the one that wants to go legit the most. Louie, who's his girlfriend, she's not as much on board with that. She understands the risks with the drug trade, but she's all about that money. But Jerome's like, man, I really just want to run my speaker shop. And, seeing him have to go a little bit further than he ever wanted to. He was never really about guns. He would whoop some ass. Jerome has whooped the shit out of some people, but he got beat up by some cops at the end of season 3 when they were basically raiding all of Franklin's people. And I mean, he got like hospitalized because they grabbed Louis and they were like beating him like unconscious. So I think that has more to do with his PTSD than actually just shooting somebody.
Just that, yeah, it's everything that's going on. Just an accumulation of all the stuff, the heat that they're getting from the cops, and the nature of their business in the first place. And now he's shooting at. So you're saying it's all of that building up. That's really just okay.
Yeah, Jerome's always been. He's not level-headed by any means, but he was a good businessman. Like, he sold weed, but he was good at it, and he sold a lot, and did a good job with it. But I think that he legit doesn't want the heat anymore. And then after this stuff with the cops at the end of season 3, Jerome, more than anybody else, is done with this life. And he made a mention to it a couple times. He was just like, man, even in this, like these 2 episodes, he was talking about how he doesn't want to do those things anymore. He's like, I really want to, get things going. And Louis is the one that keeps pulling him back in, be like, man, we got to finish this. And he's like, I don't know. But I think it's because when he got hurt by the cops, he realizes that any kind of illegal anything makes you a target. And he just wants to go legit. He wants to run his speaker shop.
Like I said up front, I wish I had known about the show earlier. It was a really enjoyable premiere. It was 2 episodes. They clocked in about an hour and a half total runtime for both of them. Flew right by. It was a great watch, and and I'm online, because I'm running, this show, and so I'm writing names down. I'm doing research. I'm doing everything and getting all into the series that way. So yeah, I had a great time. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about regarding the premiere of Snowfall season 4?
I mean, you guys have more questions you can ask off air, but like I think that this continuation of the story previously is very interesting to me. I'm very curious as to Franklin always seems to get out of it. There's always a cost. Like, there's always something awful that happens to him, but he normally seems to figure it out. He's very smart. But this one, it almost seems insurmountable. So I'm very curious as to how he gets through this.
It's like Peaky Blinders.
Yes.
Every season starts and you're like, there's no way they can get out of this. And then the last episode, it's like they get out of it, but there's usually some kind of cost. Price paid.
People die.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't foresee all of Franklin's crew making it past this season.
Yeah, it's been it was an interesting 2 episodes, and I definitely look forward to going back and watching the previous seasons. It's obviously I'm not going to get through 30 hours of TV in a week or 2, but it's like I'm going to steadily go through it, and I'll definitely be caught up. I'm sure by the time this season is done. How many episodes do we typically get per season for this
10.
show? 10 episodes?
Yeah. Only the first one is like an hour. The first one is like an hour and 10 minutes or something. And then every one after that is like 40. So if you're able to watch it like on a non-interrupted or commercial-free type service, it won't be quite as long. I mean, it's still fucking even 40, 45 minutes. So it's still a lot.
Yeah, because I'm gonna try and go through these, and then I Banshee is now on HBO Max, and I gotta. Yeah, I was like, holy shit! So I gotta go back and I didn't see I don't think I saw season 2. I saw season 1, but I don't think I saw season 2, 3. I know I didn't see 3 or 4, but I can't remember about 2. I have to go back and.
I know we stopped. I think like right before 2 started because
there
was a big break after 1, so we didn't get to see the rest.
Well, it was fun. This how far back that was. This was back when we was having to buy the DVDs.
Oh yeah.
So there was, so yeah.
And for anyone who watches this show, Banshee is definitely worth your time. If you're into most of the things that we review or watch, you definitely would like Banshee.
If you have HBO Max and you're listening to this review, watch Banshee. You definitely 100% agree. Anything else, guys?
No, one of the kids' friends came over and the dogs went apeshit.
All right. Appreciate everyone listening. Like I said, we're going to be doing these every single week through the run of this show. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.